Premier, thank you for taking the time.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me.
So, you know, we were just here at the table talking about whether or not anything concrete or new came out of that meeting. What would you say to that? Anything new emerge from the discussions that wasn't being discussed before?
Well, I think one of the biggest things to come out of this meeting was that sense of unity. You know, there's been a lot of talk in the press. There's been premiers giving interviews on their own. So it was good for us to come back together and reaffirm that we are a united Canada. What I wanted out of this was I wanted some more information on what the Team Canada approach really was. What's the roles of the premiers? And I feel like I got that. We talked about what will happen if those tariffs are implemented and the steps forward. So I feel more informed. I feel confident that the federal government has a solid plan, and so that's what came out of this meeting today.
Has a solid plan. Is it? Can you share any of the strategy as to what will happen if the United States does pursue this 25% tariff?
So when I say a solid plan, I mean there's a plan, but it can only be so solid because right now we don't have details on what Trump might do. He said a 25% tariff. Is that what's going to happen? We're not sure. Is it a 25% tariff on some things with exemptions? It's very unclear right now. So a lot of work, from what I understand, is happening to come up with different options for different scenarios.
Now, there seemed to be a lot of camaraderie across the table, the premiers that are here in Ottawa, although, and I know you know this, during the final news conference itself, as the Prime Minister was speaking, Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, she did release a statement on social media saying that she cannot be on board with Ottawa until it promises that there would be no export tariffs on energy, oil and gas in particular, from Alberta. What do you say to that opposition or that lack of unity when it comes to Alberta and its concerns over oil and gas?
Well, every jurisdiction is unique, and as the Premier, you're looking out for your jurisdiction. The approach I'm taking is that we're part of Team Canada, and we are going to make sure that everything's on the table. It's hard to, before we even know what Trump might do, take things off the table. And so the approach that we decided at the table was that nothing's off the table until we figure out what the approach Trump's taking is.
You know, going into today's meeting, though, you did talk about the need to talk about why Canada is in this situation in the first place, why Canada doesn't have, for example, its own refineries as opposed to relying on American refineries. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because you expressed your own desires and concerns going into the meeting. I'm wondering if any of those concerns were met around the table.
Well, I raised those concerns at the table as well. And I think there's a general sense that the world is not the way it used to be. We have trade partnerships with the United States, and we always will. We're never going to grow oranges in Canada, and they're not going to make maple syrup in the United States. But there's things that we can do as Canadians, as Canada, and make investments so that we are not so reliant on the United States. I don't think it's a position we want to be in, where on a whim, someone can come in and essentially crush our economy.
So going forward then, what are you looking for Ottawa, and acknowledging the fact that we're in a unique situation as Prime Minister Trudeau, as of March 9th, will no longer be Prime Minister. What do you want to see from Ottawa going forward to make sure that Canadian territories, Canadian provinces, that their future economies can be protected?
Well, one of the things I want to see is a focus on these tariffs and this threat, and I've been assured today that that's what the focus is. The Prime Minister said he's not running again, and so he's not worried about a re-election campaign. He's focusing all of his efforts on this current threat that we're facing, and so I was happy to hear that, and I look forward to working with him and the other premiers as we all work collectively to do what we can to avoid those tariffs, and if they can't be avoided, what we can do to ensure they last for the shortest amount of time possible.
You talked about knowing what the federal government is asking of the premiers to do going forward. What do you see as your role going forward here?
Well, I've already gone down and I've met with the Western governors, talked to business leaders in the United States at the Western Governors Conference. I've spoken with industry in my territory and ensuring that I know what their issues are. We are trying to work with business to ensure that they're making contacts with their American counterparts. So it really is all the premiers are going full out in terms of reaching out to the United States, reaching out to our counterparts, doing what we can to ensure that we are working together and showing a united front.
Premier R.J. Simpson of Northwest Territories, thank you for this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.